You buy yourself a coffee, maybe a meal at your favorite restaurant, maybe a new book, or a concert ticket. And then it hits you, that familiar, heavy feeling, the one that whispers, "You shouldn't have done that. You should have saved that money. What's wrong with you?" Sound familiar? Because 77% of people say they find it genuinely hard to stop spending on things they love, and almost every single one of them feels guilty about it afterward. Here's what nobody ever told you. That guilt? It might actually be costing you more than the coffee ever did. In the next 9 minutes, I'm going to flip everything you thought you knew about spending. I'm going to show you why joy spending is not your enemy, how guilt is secretly making your finances worse, and exactly how to spend on what you love, without the shame and without going broke. Stay with me, because this one changes things. Section 1. The guilt loop. Nobody talks about. Let's start with something real. Something uncomfortable. Most personal finance advice treats your spending like a crime, like every time you enjoy your money, you're doing something wrong. And over time, you start to believe it. You buy something small, a takeout meal, a new playlist subscription, and immediately your brain goes into punishment mode. You check your bank balance with dread. You feel like you failed. And here's the twisted part, that guilt doesn't actually stop you from spending. Research shows that nearly 60% of people experience guilt after unplanned purchases, but most of them spend again shortly after, because now they're stressed. MIT researchers even have a name for this. They call it the moral tax on consumption. It's the guilt that sits on top of every purchase, quietly stealing the joy out of what you bought. You finally treat yourself to something nice, but you can't even enjoy it fully, because the mental punishment starts the moment you swipe the card. And here's what that cycle actually looks like. You feel guilty, you get stressed. You spend again to feel better, you feel guiltier. Over and over, the guilt was never protecting your wallet. It was just exhausting you. Section 2. What science actually says about spending and happiness. Now let's talk facts, because the data tells a very different story than what most money gurus want you to believe. A major study published in Communication Psychology tracked hundreds of people across 7 countries. They each received money, and they tracked exactly how happy people felt based on what they spent it on. Here's what they found. People who spent money in ways that genuinely made them happy reported higher overall life satisfaction 3 months later, 6 months later. That's not a small effect. That's lasting, and it gets more interesting. What brings real, lasting happiness isn't the expensive stuff. It's not the luxury car or the designer bag. Research consistently shows that experiences, a dinner with people you love, a concert, a short trip, create longer-lasting happiness than any physical object. Your brain processes spending on joy the same way it processes other rewards. It releases dopamine. It signals, this was worth it. And when spending is intentional, when you chose it with full awareness, there's no crash afterward. The guilt only comes when spending feels out of control, when it feels like something happened to you, not something you decided. That's the key distinction. And it changes everything about how you should think about your money. Section 3. The real problem isn't enjoying money. It's having no system. Here's where most people get this wrong, and what I'm about to say in this section is where the real shift happens. The problem is never that you enjoyed your money. The problem is spending without a plan. So every purchase feels like a surprise, and every surprise feels like a mistake. Think about it this way. If you set aside a specific amount each month, let's call it your joy budget, and you spend every single dollar of it on things you love, that's not irresponsible. That's intentional. That's actually what financially healthy people do. The people who feel the least guilt around money, they're not the ones who deprive themselves of everything. They're the ones who've decided in advance what their money is for. They save first. They cover their needs. And then, guilt-free, they enjoy what's left for joy. Because it was already planned. It was already theirs to spend. The people who feel the most guilt, they're the ones with no system. Every purchase is a surprise. Every decision feels reactive. And reactive spending always feels wrong, even when the amount is tiny. So the fix isn't to stop buying coffee. The fix is to build a system where your coffee already has a place. Section 4. How to build your joy budget, the simple way. Okay, let's make this practical. Because a video about feelings is useless without something you can actually do tomorrow. Here's the simplest framework I know. 3 buckets. That's it. Bucket 1. Your foundation. This covers rent, groceries, bills, transport, everything you need to function. This typically takes up 50 to 60% of your income. Non-negotiable, always funded first. Bucket 2. Your future. This is savings, emergency fund, investments, even if it's small, even if it's just 10% right now. This bucket comes before bucket 3. Pay your future self first, automatically, before you even see the money. Bucket 3. Your joy. Whatever is left after buckets 1 and 2, that is yours, completely. Guilt-free. Spend it on whatever lights you up. Food, experiences, hobbies, gifts for people you love. When this money is gone, it's gone for the month. But while you have it, you enjoy every single dollar. This system works because the guilt comes from uncertainty. When you don't know if you can afford something, every purchase feels like a risk. But when your foundation is covered and your future is funded, the joy spending carries zero weight. You're not stealing from yourself. You're using money that was already designated for exactly this. Start small. Even allocating $50 a month as guilt-free joy money changes how you feel about your finances, because now you have permission, built into your own system, on your own terms. Here's what I want you to take away from this video. You were never bad with money. You were just never given a framework that made space for being human. Money isn't just for the future. It isn't just for emergencies and rent and responsible adult things. Money is also for the dinner that made you laugh until you couldn't breathe, for the concert you still talk about 2 years later, for the small, everyday things that remind you that life right now, not someday, is worth showing up for. The goal was never to squeeze every drop of joy out of your present so you can have a slightly larger number in your account. The goal is a life that feels good to live, financially stable, and genuinely enjoyable. So here's your challenge for this week. Just one thing. Look at your last month of spending. Find 3 purchases that brought you real, genuine happiness. Write them down. And next time you're about to feel guilty for spending on something you love, remember that joy was always part of the plan. Build the system, fund the future, and then spend your joy money without apology. You've earned it, and you deserve to actually feel that. If this video helped shift something for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next one.